Good evening, race fans, and welcome to the 12th race of the 4th season of the Dark Horse Racing Series presented by Troy Lee Designs. As earlier on this season we were at the Magic Mile of New Hampshire, today we are at the Milwaukee Mile as these drivers prepare for 120 laps at this short track. I'm Seth Cole, alongside of Scott Rankin. And Scott, we ended up seeing 9 cautions in the New Hampshire race. Of course, it made its debut on the schedule this season. The Milwaukee Mile, though, these guys have been coming to this racetrack since season 2. So what's some of the things that maybe can play into longer green flag runs here today?
Look, Milwaukee, it's tough to get an overtake done here. It's effectively, basically, a road course where you only turn left because there's little to no banking. It strikes me very much as a road course, and indeed, this is actually one of the only Indy courses that I've actually driven in this configuration of car and layout, and to success, mind you. So, look, I've definitely got experience here. It's tough. It's going to be very, very hard on brakes. Tires do matter here, as does the downforce, because it's a road style course. The downforce is so important. You need to be able to get those tires properly pressed into the surface. There's going to be 2 separate lines into the corners. There's going to be the entering in very low and very deep, pushing into the middle and compromising your corner exit. And there's going to be the late apex kind of line, which is you don't turn in initially on the corner entries particularly strong in actually 1 and 2. And then you sort of get to the bottom later on within the corner, really power off the exit. You're straighter a lot earlier. You can really get back to the gas. These guys are going to be really careful on their throttle management this week, because if you just stomp on that pedal, the thing is going to loop.
How about the impressive debut last week of David Cook at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, finishing, I believe it was 3rd place to his teammate making 3rd place behind his teammate Rick Ravon and behind the eventual winner Henry Bennett. Looking to see if he'll be able to go podium in back-to-back races, as so far only 4 drivers have taken time here in this qualifying session, with closing on 2 minutes remaining.
Expect to see a lot of them out. It's a very short lap, so don't be too phased by that. And I'm just watching Eric Peterson. He's taking a later apex line into 1 and 2, really trying to get towards the bottom in the middle of that corner and get back to the power. And as soon as he does that, you just see the car just push wide. What's going on there? And the reason, everyone will know this because we've all felt this in real life in our own cars when we're out there on the road, be it your normal everyday car or the Matt Rodriguez piloted smart car that he actually owned and drove for a few number of years. Doesn't matter. All cars will experience this. Effectively, what's happening is when you dump on the power, you're taking weight away from the front wheels. Which wheels are the ones that are used for turning? That's right, the ones right at the front. You'll feel that weight shift a little bit towards the rear. It takes the weight off the front tires. They don't turn so well. Additionally, you're scrubbing the tires then because you're shifting the weight balance around the car. It's such a tricky thing to get right. And look, to be perfectly honest, I've got all faith that this setup is once again a phenomenal one because, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, Henry Bennett does the setups here for the DW12. The guy also does setups and gets paid to do so he knows what he's doing with an IndyCar.
And he is top of the board now by 15 one-thousandths of a second over Robert Mileska III. There's Rick Ravon clocking in at 7th place, just ahead of his teammate David Cook. So not exactly as high a qualifying effort as we would expect to see out of him. Covey Moore looks like he may not even get a lap in here, as he was coming around for a money lap there. Got the wall off of turn 2. Now, Robert Mileska
Ravon
III...
did improve. I was just watching Rick Ravon when you mentioned him. That was actually his first lap that went on the board. His second lap, I was expecting him to probably get a better run off of 3 and 4, go a little bit faster. Didn't improve. It was only a 4, whereas in the first lap he did a 3.72. He'll settle himself in. Rick Ravon's actually been really consistent driving through traffic this season. One of the few drivers I think has been comfortable in traffic this season. A lot of the other drivers have had to fight their way through traffic, and I think the only one that's been able to do it on repeat, cleanly and consistently, has been Ravon.
Couple of things that I observed coming into this race. First off, the 2 drivers that eventually went on to win the championships in the last 2 seasons took a checkered flag here in those respective seasons at the Milwaukee Mile. Nick DeGroot back in season 2 and Robert Mileska III last season. Another thing I also noticed, though, neither one of them won those respective races from the pole. They both started from the outside of the front row in 2nd place. Mileska locked in at 2nd alongside of Henry Bennett. So we'll have to see if we go a trifecta of seasons of a driver starting P2 but finishing P1.
I mean, the other side of the coin is you've pulled that crystal ball out again. Can you stop? You're scaring me.
Now I will point this out. When I mentioned that whole conspiracy theory back at Homestead, Miami, who went on to
No.
win that race? It was Henry Bennett. So Bennett already has gotten 3 wins this season. He's won the last 2 in a row. If he's able to win here today, my goodness, I'll tell you what, the stars and the numbers, they would seem to be aligning for that 007.
Please stop, Seth. Please stop. Next thing you know, so for those of you who don't know, just before we went on air, we were just talking. Broadcast. What would you call it? Broadcast owner Matthew Rodriguez came to me in a dream last night and told me Dark Horse wasn't on this week. I got a day off. Dream Matt was not nice to me. Now, Seth, if you keep this up, I get the feeling the next person I'll be seeing in my dreams is you, because you're now appearing with the crystal ball and just be like, you will show up for broadcast this week and there will be a winner.
I'll be like that old woman you see in the caravans at the carnivals or something like that, predicting the future.
Stop telling my fortune, Seth. You're scaring me.
No, we do have a couple of drivers. I mean, we saw last week the impressive debut out of David Cook. A couple new drivers in the field here today, including clocking in the 4th position, Osman Espit. That 777 was actually up at the top of the leaderboard in practice. A lot of speed out of that machine, and also the 69 John DiMatteo, who did not take any time here in qualifying. He'll be starting back in the 22nd position, but as we start to progress further into the middle and towards the end of the season, we start to see the new names pop in. It starts to give us an idea of what kind of competition these guys could bring if we see them run full time in the upcoming 5th season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. It was the first time in a fair while that we've had above 20 cars on the grid, and it looks to be, again, a healthy field. Bennett went to the pole with a 2.31. You've got Robert Maleska the third in second with a 2.45, a 2.77 for Jimmy Dryden, which is phenomenal. Jimmy Dryden's had very good single lap pace. He hasn't been able to stick a lap together, but he's right out ahead of the traffic this week. He's got a good opportunity, and I'd really, really want to see him take that and run away with it, because it would be a great confidence booster for his season. I've been a little bit critical of his driving at times. He's an aggressive style of driver, and he wants to get those moves done. And I don't necessarily think he pulls them off as cleanly, so it's a good opportunity for him today. And then you throw it back, like you said, to Espete. 3.12, 3.41 for Nick de Groot, Moskowitz 3.65, 3.72 for Ravon, Cook's a 3.85, so the teammates will be lining up next to each other as well. So we've got a really nice condensed front 10 or so cars. So again, the racing's going to be close, and the numbers are up, and the green flag's in the air.
Green flag is out. We are underway here at the Milwaukee Mile. Is Henry Bennett going to get away for the time being, leaving a 3-way battle for second? Close there between, I believe that was Espete and Dryden off of turn 2.
Yeah, so they've got to be careful. This is a really tight, short track, and up through the gears all the time. So you've got to be careful with the way that you apply the throttle, get those runs going, and I get the feeling that Dryden's actually gotten a lot better start than I thought he was. It's the guys in behind him that are struggling.
Yeah, you said careful. When you said careful, they were 3 wide with Moskowitz, David Cook, and Nick de Groot. It was Moskowitz that got the advantage. He'll move up to 5th. Cook had to bail out of the throttle into turn 1. He drops back to 6th, and de Groot now under fire from Rick Ravon. That's for 7th.
Yeah, and that's it. Just keep it responsible, guys. I mean, we've had a lot of issues the last couple of weeks of ovals, certainly with potentially just being a little bit too aggressive too early. The thing with Milwaukee, you've got to get some moves done nice and early whilst those tires will allow you to. It's so much harder to make the moves later in the run unless you've really built up that tire advantage. Tires are going to be a huge factor here tonight.
Contact we saw right there between AJ Hobson and Eric Peterson coming off of turn 4. They're able to keep it together and keep it straight, though I thought maybe Peterson might be running that corner a little wide and maybe get the wall off the final corner. Jim Brooks back here. He has a top 10 finish here from last season. He's battling with Matt Wagner. Bunch of big names back here that we know are good at the speedways that did not clock in, at least didn't clock in times or didn't clock in very fast lap times. You got Wagner back here, Kobe Moore, Jeff Highsong, Bronson Stafford. You kind of wonder, are they playing the waiting game right now? Because I'm going to be assuming the longer the run goes on, the harder it is to going to be able to make the overtakes and complete the passes.
It's difficult to say. I mean, Stafford, this is probably one of his worst qualifying attempts since we've seen him in the league. I mean, 13th, that's just... He's normally half of that. He's normally up in and around the 6th and 7th position. I'm really disappointed with that effort from him. Like, That's just not him at all. I think he is playing the patience game. I think he's potentially playing the fuel-saving game as well. He'll actually have teammate Mike Tellier in behind him to work with a little right there at that stage of things as well. So there's that to play with, and he's just gonna let it go. So, gonna be honest with you, Matt Wagner, the last couple weeks, the guy hasn't put down a qualifying lap. I was chatting to him after our race last week at Mosport, and he said he was trying to, and he just made a couple mistakes, and he just didn't get the lap in. But he kept the head down, he kept things clean, and he was actually really, really happy with how the race went, because I think he was one of the very few cars that just didn't see chaos or didn't make any mistakes whatsoever. And another one of those cars, I said, Ravon, I forgot to mention Matt Wagner. Matt Wagner's very comfortable in traffic, and he's worked his way through it just about every week.
Drinan and David Cook, they were in a real big battle right there for the 4th position. Drinan was trying to get around Espite, had to bail out of the throttle, and that brought David Cook right to his back door. So we're definitely going to be seeing this kind of play into the momentum tracks that we've seen when we go to the ovals. Nick DeGroot coming into this race, mentioned the fact he's a former winner here back in Season 2, but actually his numbers here overall have been really good as well. Last season, when Robert Maleska took the checkered flag, DeGroot was right behind him in second, so he's got about an average finish of 1.5, 1.75, so we'll see if he can get back up here into the podium late in this one. Right now, mired back in the latter half of the top 10.
And DeGroot will be just taking his time. He's looking after the car. He's just, making sure that he's getting himself in. This track is going to change quite aggressively throughout the course of the run as well, because they're laying a lot of rubber down. One of the benefits of having 23 cars is that there is enough cars to really affect the amount of grip that's available out there. One of the detriments of that, though, is that the marble's going to... Oh, I tell you what, DeGroot just about whacked the fence. So one thing that does happen at this circuit is it does narrow a little bit on exit of 1 and 2, and it's about 3/4 of the way through the corner in 1 and 2 as well, that the track just sort of closes in a little bit. It's one of the features of the track. Widens off a lot in the entry and then sort of narrows a bit right there, and gets narrower and narrower and narrower, and the racing groove off of 1 is so narrow because the car's already pushing towards the wall and the wall's coming in at the same time. You've got to be very, very careful. One of the benefits, though, of the Milwaukee Mile is that the laps tick off very quickly, sir.
Yeah, they definitely do. 13 laps in here, all under the green flag. And with the laps ticking away here under green, might be a little too early to talk about it, but we'll do it anyway, is the fuel window for these guys. These guys can go a maximum of about 44 laps on a tank of fuel. So if we're looking at drivers with varying strategies, some of them might go for the undercut early on and then go the 44 laps twice to the finish. If they do that, they'll be coming to pit road somewhere in the lap 33 vicinity. Everybody else, though, that's going to maybe try and take on less fuel at the end, should this race go green from green to checkered, they'll be coming in, obviously, at that target lap of about 43 to 44 laps. I was talking with Eric Peterson before we ended up taking the green flag here as well. He said one of the things that these drivers have to worry about is that yellow line down there on the apron, that yellow rumble strip. Now, they do have a ruling in drivers' meeting where these guys were told if they want to put their left sides down below that yellow line, they are allowed to do that, but only the left sides can go below it. Down in 3 and 4, not advised. It does not help them in any way. It actually causes the car to plow and will head up into the wall off of 4. There's no way to get the car to turn. But off of turn 2, the car kind of naturally wants to hook down off the second corner on the low line. So they actually are allowed to use the apron area there off the second corner to their advantage if they want to.
Now, the reason that they're talking about using that area is because without that, and that's a common sense rule, right? That's a ruling that allows the drivers really to show their skill and shows their ability. If they want to get a move done, and it's going to be incredibly tight, you see everyone just about in this middle pack with Nick DeGroot, Dylan Moskowitz, Rick Ravon, every single one of them is just sticking their left side tires down there. It's common sense. It allows the car to rotate a little bit better. You can drive it a little bit deeper into the corner. It just makes the corner flow a little bit better. It has a better chance of helping to promote overtaking and helping to promote better racing, and that's why they've gone with it.
We mentioned, of course, about the hot streak that Henry Bennett has been on the last couple of weeks.
Here comes DeGroot. Here comes DeGroot on Moskowitz. He's going to show the nose, and Moskowitz has just got the momentum on the high line.
It's very similar to a couple of moves that David Cook was trying to make earlier. Oh, we got a caution!
Again.
Bronson Stafford and Mike Tellier, teammates, have gotten together over in turn 2.
Oh no. That is not good for Stafford. Stafford is already lagging a little bit behind in terms of championship hopes. So this one's a rotation on Tellier's, and Stafford's unfortunately just following him in. There's nothing either of those cars could do.
battling at the time with AJ Hobson was Mike Tellier, and there we talk about that yellow line, that rumble strip area, and it just looked like it. I don't know if it was the rumble strip that took away grip from that left rear tire, snapped it around or what, but nowhere for Bronson Stafford to go. And yeah, you mentioned about Stafford's positioning in the points coming into this one, 6th in the overall standings, but 108 points behind the points lead, and we're heading into the home stretch of the schedule.
It's done. Yeah, it's done. Unfortunately, Stafford's hopes for a championship are falling away drastically. He'll have his sights set on a top 5, though, and indeed, he's still in contention for a top 5. The issue is he's just not in that lead chase group. For him to get a top 5, really, what's going to happen is one of that chase group has to just have a drastically impacted tail end of the season, and with this sort of a race, Stafford can't afford this. Completely and utterly cannot afford to be this far back. He needs a 10th or better to remain in the hunt for that top 5. Either way, you've got to look at it and say, hey, this is actually a really good rookie season for Stafford. You can't complain. You know, at the end of the day, you can sit out here and you'd be like, yeah, he's shown flashes of brilliance. Yeah, he should be further ahead. But this is a rookie season in a new league with some of the best IndyCar drivers that are on the iRacing surface. The guy's done a phenomenal job at the end of the day, you know, breaking into a league like this, and I expect his next season is going to be even better.
Yeah, absolutely. Henry Bennett wins the battle off pit road. He's led the first 20 laps so far, and the timing of this caution with everybody coming to pit road really makes things interesting now from here to the checkered flag in terms of pit strategy, because even if these drivers come down pit road in those 44 lap segments we were talking about, it's going to be very close for some of these guys in terms of the mixture of when they would decide to make those 2 remaining pit stops, whether it be under green or under caution. Now, Bennett, obviously, with that victory last week at Mosport, he is the points leader. He's got 32 points over Robert Maleska III, but you talk about, you know, not making mistakes down this home stretch. 2nd through 4th are only separated by 2 points. Nick DeGroot is only 1 point behind Maleska, and Ravon 2 points behind Maleska as well. So throw a blanket over those guys. All of them have found victory lane this season. It's kind of going to come down between those 3 of who's going to blink first, because, you know, 1, 2, or all 3 of these guys, their goal is to get up there and battle Bennett for this championship by the time we get to Indy, but they've got to worry about each other as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, the thing is, you've got to start getting control of the season. If you let anything slip, here's the thing: you've got to push. You've got to be right on that limit. But any mistake is going to put a line through your hopes at a championship potentially. That's the way that you've got to look at it. There's nothing you can do because you've actually got to have a crack. If you want to win this thing, you've got to have a go at it. You can't just sit back and let everybody else, you know, let them make their own mistakes. You know, so it's difficult. Everything is just it's so difficult because the drivers are caught right now between pushing and conserving, and it's honestly, I couldn't pick. I really couldn't. It'd be so difficult to be a driver right now.
There's no safe spot here down the home stretch either.
No.
After this week, we go to Motegi, we go to Phoenix, Iowa, Long Beach Street Circuit, Texas Motor Speedway, and then, of course, the Indy 500 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I mean, every single one of those tracks, you can sit back, you can look at it, and you can say, yep, I could definitely see where this could be a place that could catch out one of these championship competitors.
That's just it. I mean, you know, and if the leader makes a mistake, oh man, does hell just break loose behind them?
Yep.
That's the other side of the coin as well, is if the guy that's leading the championship does something wrong, he makes a fumble, he's the one to trip over his own toes, well, all of a sudden the championship is just so wide open.
Especially with the IndyCar points. I mean, the race winner gets 50 points. You consider maybe the championship leader finishing 20th place. I mean, that's a net gain of 40 points that you pick up in the span of one race. So yeah, a lot of things can change here at the tracks that are coming up here near the end of this schedule. As the green flag back in the air, the stack up's going to be from 4th place on back. Moskowitz, Cook, Ravon, DeGroot, all nose to tail heading into 3.
That's it. Just keep managing that race. Fresh tires for everyone. Everyone's on the same fuel loads. This is an interesting situation within the race. You talked about it. Pit stops, 44 laps that you can get. Well, from here, it's going to be about 43 laps. It's going to be all the way through to about lap 68, 69, somewhere in that realm of things. You still will need 2 stops from here, if it goes green, to get home. With the nature of the track, I'm running 44 laps on the tank. I'm running the tank bone dry every single time because I'm expecting a caution at some stage.
Me Drynen, Dylan Moskowitz, and Rick Ravon, all close proximity, 4th, 5th, and 6th. Ooh, you saw Dylan Moskowitz there really yank the wheel hard to the left to avoid hitting the outside wall off of turn 2. Now, mention those top 4 in the points. The guy that's also just on the cusp on the outside looking in would be Matt Wagner.
Here comes Ravon to the inside of Moskowitz.
And will he complete the pass through the center of the corner? Looks like he will, so very nice pass there. Moskowitz going to try and cross him over into 3. Wagner is 59 points out coming into this race, 5th in the overall stands, and as we mentioned, started deep in the field, right now in the 12th position. There's a couple spots away from cracking into the top 10, and boy, look at there as Moskowitz tried the crossover. It did not help him because now David Cook is right there alongside.
Yeah, and this is teammates working together as well. Ravon will be keen to get his teammate past Dylan Moskowitz, because then those two, they can start to work together. They can talk about how they're going to assault this front pack of 4.
And he has been on it on not only this restart, but the initial start of the race as well.
Oh, Moskowitz very wide off of 1. Didn't manage to slap the wall. How he's done that, I actually have no idea, Seth. That's a great save. That is so much driver skill, but that means that he's just going to have to give up this battle with David Cook.
Close to the wall there off of 4 as well, as Cook continues to try and complete that pass here into 1 and 2. Moskowitz not going to go away quietly. Drove it really deep through the center. And
great driving.
Credit to Dylan Moskowitz holding tough there in that middle line.
Well, and more importantly than that, it's David Cook who's also given him the space to make that happen. That is heads-up driving by both of them, but respectful driving by both of them. De Groot wants by these guys, though. He had a thought. He could send it 3 wide, but there's no benefit in that. He's just going to squeeze them, and that will cause an accident. There's no questions about that one. Cook finally gets the move done, and De Groot says, all right, if Cook can do this, I can do one better.
Cook left the door open. De Groot going to stick his foot in. They almost had a little contact there off the corner. Got De Groot a little loose. And Jim Herrick, you're right there to capitalize. Ooh, got close there to the left rear of Nick De Groot. Bailed out of the throttle to avoid contact into 1.
And Moskowitz is struggling. I get the feeling this is only a matter of time before De Groot's going to get this move done. This is where all the real battle packs have been. But if you keep your eyes up ahead of you, Ravon is closing at a rapid rate of knots on Jimmy Drynen ahead as well. So keep your eyes out for that battle coming.
That would be inside the top 5 for the 4th position between Drynen and Rick Ravon, taking place about half a second behind Austin Espite, who's actually having a great debut up there inside of the podium, and only half a second off the back of Robert Maleska III.
Yeah, so this is just it. It is a phenomenal battle. And I mean, remember what I said at the tail end of qualifying, how close this was, right? How close the times are. And we've got so many new rookies that are in right up and down the field. And I say rookies, and I say it with air quotes, because these guys have clearly driven the DW12 before and driven it to much success, especially if your name's Austin Espite. I'm going to have to get that confirmed and exactly how that's said. Gary Corley on his way out of the pits.
Yeah, he was just on pit road, unscheduled stop for the 7, 2 laps down.
I get the feeling that may have been a pit lane penalty.
It could very well have been. I think you're right.
Because there was some burble on the chatter just before during the caution period, and what was actually said was that Corley I think he got a penalty for entering a closed pits, which was really odd. He said the pits was effectively closed. He crossed the line. The instant he crossed the line, it said open.
And he's going to come out right in front of Dylan Moskowitz in the 7th position. Ooh, that was close there between those two off of turn 4. That's going to bring Nick De Groot now into the vicinity to try and get the 7th spot away from the 4 of Moskowitz. Corley not really moving out of the way here of these race leaders. These drivers on the lead lap.
He is.
Now he moves up and will offer an opportunity for Moskowitz to go on by him. Moskowitz is one of 3 drivers that's off the lead lap. Bronson Stafford is 1 lap down in 20th, and Mike Tellier 3 laps down in 22nd, but all 22 cars are still running at this point in time.
Yeah, so it's unfortunate. I mean, the only downside is that we've lost Benjamin Combs, who actually didn't set a qualifying time. He did set a practice time, but never progressed into the race session. So something's been happening with Benjamin Combs as well. And look, there's something wrong there. I'm really concerned for Benjamin Combs, because I have a feeling something external to racing is actually taking him away from the races, which is disappointing.
Wagner, first time today, he makes an appearance inside the top 10, just got around Charles Teed. Up ahead of him, you've got Nick DeGroot and Jim Herrick. They just are now making their way around the lap machine of Gary Corley, but looking in terms of lap times right now, Matt Wagner is running faster lap times than about 6-7 drivers ahead of him. So obviously he is in full go mode right now, trying to get himself up there, especially if we end up going into a round of green flag pit stops.
Okay, so just an update in on Bronson Stafford as well. I've been actually tapping away to his spotters as well. He's got wheel issues at this point in time. So the reason that he is not anywhere near where he should be is hardware failure, which is catastrophic for potentially his season. I mean, when we talk about it, Seth, and we talk about it in terms of a sim versus an IRL perspective of racing, you can have hardware failures in real life. You can have, steering pinion. The pinion, it might just slip one notch either side, and then you've got a wheel that's off center for the rest of the race, and there's nothing that you can do about it. It's a very uncommon thing to happen, but it can happen. Hardware issues, it's much the same, and look, it probably gets complained about a lot more within sim racing than it does, because the real life drivers, they can't do anything about it, and they recognize that, and they just get on with business. Sim racers, well, they can do something about it, so they tend to complain a lot.
Yeah, and the tough break there for Bronson Stafford as well. He, Gary Corley, and Mike Tellier are all one faster pair that mulligan in the hole, and we haven't even reached the halfway point of this race. So, yeah, tough break there for Bronson Stafford, who was looking really good early on in the season, hit a couple of bumps, and right now trying to maintain his 6th position in the point standings. Henry Bennett, though, I was pointing this out earlier, he just jumped away once the green flag flew to start this race. Did the same here on the only restart we've had. 3 seconds over Robert Maleska III. I mean, nobody's even close to setting the lap times that Henry Bennett is right now.
It's clear out of the nose of that car. That front wing is working exactly how it should do. So that's the difference right now. And I mean, you got to remember that this is a driver of high standing. Bennett definitely knows what he's doing in terms of things. Like, the guy builds setups for these cars. He knows exactly what he's doing, exactly what he's trying to do. So look, I mean, he's just a great driver. 5.5k I rating, Robert Maleska's 6.1, and Espete's 4.8k. So you can say that there is a lot of really, really strong drivers in this field. But at the end of the day, the difference between them would be next to nothing, and it's just down to clear air.
And it's funny too, because you go back to last year, Nick DeGroot came in as the defending champion, and Maleska ended up being the outgoing champion. And when we would talk with Nick post-race, he would say, there were so many races he would look back at and think, if I had done something just slightly different, I probably would have been able to win that race and make it a closer points battle between me and Maleska. You have to wonder currently this season, sitting 32 points behind Henry Bennett, if Maleska looks back, especially at the road courses, and kind of observes, if I had done a little bit better there, I'd be right up there, maybe single digits, either ahead or behind Henry Bennett, and week after week, we might be swapping that points lead back and forth.
I'm gonna refer to a statement that I pretty much say every week, and there's a very, very good reason for that. And I think Robert Maleska is actually one of the drivers that best epitomizes the statement. You make your own luck. I think Maleska is just demanding too much of the car. Now, what happens when at the road courses when you're doing that is that eventually the tires will heat up or they'll just wear. So basically, the wear and the heat in the tires get to a point whereby the mistake just gets closer and closer and closer. The room for error that you have when the tires are further, much more heavier worn is or overheated is so finite. And so close to where the regular glyph level is. If you overdrive it and you've got, reasonably temperatured tires, cooler tires, you're not driving the car hard every single lap, you've got a little bit of room for error. And everything that I've seen from Maleska is he's just pushing it. He's like, there's a place right here. He's got that racer's mindset in him, and it's like chasing a rabbit, fox chasing a rabbit, dog chasing a rabbit, It's that greyhound style mindset. I can see the guy. I want to beat him. He's right there, and I'm going to push myself beyond my limits. And mentally, as a race car driver, to pull yourself back and not do that is an incredibly difficult thing, because you do not get in a race car unless you're a competitive person. I think that's what's happened at the road courses. We've seen some utter dominating performances from him on all of the ovals. He's been right there and thereabouts. And this week, even though he's 3.5 seconds back off of Henry Bennett, I don't count this as a bad performance from him. I still count this as a good performance. He just hasn't had the benefit of that draft. Sorry, the
Absolutely.
clear air to the nose.
But 74 laps of the 120 last season here at the Milwaukee Mile. You just saw, as we were watching this battle for 4th, 5th, and 6th between Drynan, Ravon, and Cook, they just made their way around a lap machine. That's the 33 of Nicholas Winook. He is the first car 1 lap down in 18th. Also, just 2 laps ago, unscheduled pit stop for the debuting John DiMatteo. He is now running 2 laps down in the 20th position. I just want to touch a little bit more on what you were talking about there with Maleska. Maybe forcing himself to be a little bit too aggressive. He's got the championship from last season. Does having that championship have you have the mentality now, I've got nothing left to prove, I can kind of be a little bit experimental on what I'm capable of doing. See if I can go over that edge just a little bit and see if that helps.
Well, there's 2 ways. You can really take it in both sort of formats. You can go, well, I can push myself over the edge and I can be a little bit more experimental, if you will, and that'll be okay, because I've already proved myself and I'm happy with myself. Alternatively, the guy's coming in as a defending champion. I mean, the guy wants to go back to back, be the first guy to be able to do that. Like, that is a huge achievement, and I think that's what he's had himself chasing. Alternatively, he could be ignoring both of those. He's not cognizant of it whatsoever, and he's just out there trying. Henry Bennett just blinked out. We just lost Henry Bennett. Oh, he's back. Oh my god.
And he just blinked out again. I actually saw a car coming up here, which I thought was AJ Hobson. No, it was Maleska. Maleska was just on pit lane for a green flag pit stop. So things starting to get interesting here
Bennett's
as we
still
approach
gone.
halfway.
Bennett's still gone. Car's starting to file through pit road, and you mentioned it. Maleska might have been the first. Bennett's gone. He won't make it back. That's it. Bennett's going to be disconnected.
I'm having Watkins Glen flashbacks there. Yes, here comes the then 3rd place, now race leader, and now dropping outside the top 10 with giving up the spots. Austin Espite coming down pit lane, turning the race lead over to Jimmy Drynan. But again, as I mentioned, the way the IndyCar points work, 32 points to somebody that's used to stock car racing, where 1 point is 1 point per position. That seems like an insurmountable odds. But if you consider the fact that the way the IndyCar points work, if a driver wins the race and their competition finishes outside of the top 15, they're the new points leader. I mean, there's such a spread, difference in points.
That's not realistic. You can talk about that, but that's just not realistic, Seth. Like, well, it is now.
I was going to say, well, at this point in time, Henry Bennett,
he's not back
in
gone.
the server.
There's no way.
Down in the
he's gone.
He's
just disconnected. He's just been disconnected right now. He's done.
Wow.
That is championship lead.
No doubt about it. So now, as mentioned, 2 points separated Maleska, Ravon, and DeGroot coming into this race. Now it's between those 3 to figure out who's going to be the points leader heading into Twin Rim Motegi next week.
Word. Whoa, what a season. Like, if we hadn't seen the ups and downs and the all-arounds, like, so far this season, I mean, they're playing out on screen right now. Jimmy Drynan is your race leader. I didn't think I'd be saying that this season. That statement on its own is a huge, huge one-up to the driver of the 99 machine. He has had one of the worst seasons that you could possibly have, and he's come out on top, and then Rick Ray.
No!
Oh!
In front of David Cook, he was trying to come to pit road, but he was so far up the track there out of turn 4, he collects the 24 car up, and the caution flies for the 2nd time today.
Oh! Drynan! Just hold it there, buddy! Oh my word!
Is that Moskowitz that almost hit him, I do believe?
No one hit him! No one hit him, thank God!
Wow. He was in a 3-wide situation there. Rick Ravon was going around his outside up the middle to pass him for the lead. Drynan was trying to come to pit road. I don't know if he communicated it or not, but David Cook was running really low there through 3 and 4, ran into the back of him. Let's look here. Drynan appears to cross, well, he's up in the 2nd groove. He's not down in the lowest groove possible.
I think the part of the shot that's going to tell the story here is from David Cook's view, because he's just running his racing line. Like, he's just aiming for that huge exit off of 3 and 4. Drynan just drives it too deep. He's focusing on trying to get to pit lane, and he's not focusing on the corner, so he just overdrives the car a little bit. And there's no way David Cook just sees a bunch of cars going wide. Now, in Drynen's defense, I don't think Cook should be down that low on corner exit during a pit stop sequence. That is just asking for trouble. But at the same time, he sees 3 cars extremely wide and extremely slow on corner exit. If you don't go for that move, you're not a race car driver anymore. At least the only thing that I can say back is at least it's Drynen and it's not one of our top 5. Oh my word.
And you heard the reaction out of Scott. This is why Drynen refires the car. Oh, that's Eric Peterson, I think, that he almost got hit by. It was right up the racetrack in front of about 2 or 3 race cars. And then eventually teleports the car back to pit road, but ooh, that could have been a lot more torn up race cars and needlessly.
Espete and Maleska were right behind that accident. So the fact that it didn't collect either of those guys is a miracle.
Everybody was down pit road there under this caution. Now it's going to be interesting to see about Espete and Maleska, as well as Jim Herrick and Jeff Hysong. They're running right now ahead of the leaders, but trapped behind the pace car. Right now they are scored on the lead lap. We'll have to wait and see if they will be allowed to go around the pace car and be at the tail end of the field or not. So that caution could have been timely for them.
God, I'm just watching this on board from Eric Peterson and Gail Brooks's perspective. Drynen just re-enters the track right in front of Eric Peterson. Like, if that doesn't get a penalty, that I don't know how you can not get a penalty for that. Now, the mindset that Drynen's in is, I've lost time here. I've got to get this car refired, flicked back around and back out on the racing surface because that yellow's been thrown. I don't want to lose more spots on the pacing. Don't do that. Don't ever do that.
Especially at a track that's got as tight corners on exit as Milwaukee does. I mean, we've seen drivers try and drive it into the inside of another driver, come up off the corner. They have to lift because it's just so tight. It narrows up when you come off the corner. So, boy, we are very lucky that other drivers didn't get caught up in that. As it looks like, indeed, Espete, Maleska, Herrick, and Hysong were allowed to go around, so they will restart on the tail end of the lead lap. But let's also bear in mind, I don't know how much this plays into it as Rick Ravon gets us back into the green, but Espete is going to have 8-lap older tires, and Maleska will have 11-lap older tires. And one thing I was told pre-race, these front tires, with how much brake they carry into the corners, they take an awful lot of wear.
Yeah, they do. It's not necessarily just the brake, it's also how much they're turning in with the amount of speed that they're carrying. This is one of the probably the higher tire wear factors, and it's flat. If there's a little bit of banking, it does help. There's a tiny little bit of banking on 1 and 2, but the banking is nearly insignificant. It's basically just there to prevent the cars from flying off into the wall. It's a difficult circuit, to be perfectly honest. It's right up there in terms of difficulty grade and level, and the guy that's dominated the race is now 10 laps down.
And with the timing of that caution, too, look at how the landscape of even our top 5 has changed. You've got Raybon up here in the lead, DeGroot in second, Moskowitz in third, but Matt Wagner's now up to 4th. Charles Teed runs in 5th, and we're watching the battle for 6th. This is Covey Moore and Gail Brooks, who are making their first appearance inside the top 10 all day.
Yeah, and look, I feel for Maleska, I feel for Drynen. Well, Drynen's a difficult one because obviously he's caused his own kettle of fish with the second accident. But Espete and Maleska, you know, they've had pace today. And ultimately, I think the strategy that they were on, if this race went green, I think is actually the best strategy because they were looking for track position through the undercut. And they had to try something because I don't think they were going to get the move done where they were sitting. So they went for it. They really committed to that alternative strategy, and it just hasn't played out. Now, additionally, Seth, this is it. If we get a... No, it's not actually. Sorry, my mistake. You can make it home. You can make it home if you aggressively fuel save, but you're going to have to aggressively fuel save. The cars pit on lap 64. I think we restarted on about lap 66, 68. There is a shot to get home. Actually, no, apologies. Never mind, my math is wrong. No, I just realized I'm not carrying the 1 correctly. I'm carrying a 2, not a 1.
Yeah, right now it looks like these guys would be somewhere in the vicinity of, what, 8 to 10 laps short.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's like 10 to 15.
And of course, if
So-
you're Rick Ravon right now, you're wanting to be leaving Milwaukee as the points leader, and it was fuel strategy last week at Canadian Tire that ended up biting him and his teammate David Cook. Both of them were shocked that Henry Bennett was able to make it as far as he could on fuel. They had to pit with about 4 laps to go.
Yeah, and a lot of effort, that they couldn't believe it. They were just so shocked that Bennett was just able to manage in that manage it. It's just amazing.
Lesko's worked his way up to 12th place now. David Cook just ahead of him in 10th, and right between them is Austin Espite. You talk about, positioning, right place, right time during the course of these races as well. Consider this fact: Maleska came to pit road 4 laps before Henry Bennett had his connection problems. If Bennett had had his connection problems 4 laps sooner, there's no way the 91 car would have been on pit road at that time. He was trying to undercut the 007 to gain track position.
Look, I mean, you've got to try and. I think, like I said, I think the strategy would have played out. I don't know. We have no idea what Henry Bennett may have covered off the undercut too. He may have come in like a lap or 2 later to cover off that undercut. We just don't know.
Riding on board with Austin Espite, looking ahead to David Cook. They're trying to get up there to Jim Brooks in the 9th position, but they do have, I believe that's a lap machine in between themselves and the 51. Woo, that's a little close there between Cook and Espite, heading off of turn number 2. As we are closing in on 40 laps to go, still at least 1 more trip to pit road for all these drivers, and Henry Bennett just returned back into the service, so he'll get back out on the racetrack 19 laps down. That is 16 laps behind the next highest running car, Mike Tellier, in the 21st position. So, oh man, I mean, Henry Bennett's just got to hope that there's going to be maybe a late race of atrocity here to be able to pick up a couple of spots before the checkered flag.
Opportunity, and I believe actually Dark Horse actually has a disconnect rule as well, which will allow drivers to get kicked for internet ping to grab laps back under caution. But this race has actually been relatively clean. We've only had 2 cautions, and the major driver errors, the minor driver errors haven't been causing it, which ultimately I want to say a big thank you and shout out to all the drivers in the field. But that is a lot of respect that the drivers are showing each other and respect that they're showing the track. So ultimately, he's not going to get back within contention, but he still needs to earn those points, so he's showing up.
Let's remember that, as I pointed out, this was something that happened to Henry Bennett back at Watkins Glen as well. He came into that race as the points leader and had connection issues, finished way down in the running order, and that was where Rick Ravon took over the points lead. Bear in mind, though, just a couple of weeks later, Henry Bennett was able to find victory lane at Homestead Miami Speedway, eventually made his way back up to the top of the point standings. And while I say that we're down the home stretch of the schedule, the second half of the schedule, we are early in that still. There are still going to be about 6 more races after tonight for Henry Bennett to be able to mount a comeback. So it's not over yet for the 007. The question is right now, though, what is the points gap going to be between himself and whoever the eventual new points leader is going to be heading into next week?
Yeah, few good opportunities. Sorry, something's just come up on my work computer at this point in time, Seth. Sorry, so I apologize for cutting off a little bit. Yeah, look, I mean, we were talking about at the start of the race, something's going to have to happen for Henry Bennett to come back to the field. That something has now happened. But at the same time, Henry Bennett is also one of the guys who's got his head together, and he knows, okay, look, I've lost points. There's nothing I can be annoyed. 100% I can be annoyed. I'm allowed to be annoyed. In fact, I would encourage him to be annoyed, because if he's not annoyed by this, I don't know what is going to annoy the guy. But it happens, and he'll keep his head together, and he'll go out next week, and he'll know what his targets are. We've got, after this week, I believe, 7 rounds remaining. Yeah, we've got 7 rounds remaining, and the top pack is going to be a couple of points separated. So what he's now got to do is his mindset changes. So he's got to go out there and again just focus on those consistent finishes. But it's going to take wins now to put your stamp on this championship. And the thing is, if you can go out there and win today, let alone next week, you are basically saying, boys, come and chase me.
Could we be looking at a race-winning strategy right here from Robert Mileska III? He was just on pit road for his final pit stop of the day 3 laps ago, and there's the caution he did not want to see. AJ Hobson has bended onto the back straightaway there. Third caution flies, and Mileska is going to be trapped 1 lap down. He was hoping the green was going to stay out for the remainder.
It's unfortunate, but that will freeze the field. We're on a corrected pit strategy. So at least the field would kind of be frozen. This is going to be a race off a pit lane. You're going to have to take tires or you won't be able to defend. So I think bulk of the positions here are going to remain the same. I think it's sort of fixed on the pit strategy you can take here.
There's what happened to AJ Hobson. He was battling with Bronson Stafford, who was not for position, and Hobson just those right sides grasping that outside safer barrier, almost had him airborne, and then he loops it into the inside wall, bringing out this third yellow flag. Everybody diving onto pit road. This is going to be their final pit stop of the day as well. Pretty much going to set everybody up for the shootout to the finish, which will be with less than 30 laps remaining. Rick Ravon looking for his second win on the season. Nick DeGroot is looking for his second win on the season as well. Both of them trying to chase Robert Mileska III and Henry Bennett, who sit with the highest number of wins this year, 3 apiece.
Yeah, so there's some really good opportunities here once again. I mean, DeGroot's got to have only taken front tires here. That's the only thing I can think that he's done here. Now, the rear tires aren't receiving a major workout, but, I mean, potentially they are as well. So, look, I mean, you know, who knows, really.
Spent about half the time on pit road that Rick Ravon did, maybe of the feeling that the track position is more important than the tires. Rick Ravon did take on 4. Wagner also did, who will restart in 3rd. Charles Teed and Kobe Moore are going to be the top 5 when we go back green. Correction, well, no, it will be Kobe Moore. I think and Gail Brooks just were side by side for a brief moment there on my telemetry. So less than 30 laps to go. To your point, though, these guys have done a tremendous job of keeping this thing, you know, relatively caution-free. We've only had 3 cautions up to this point, and we are 3/4 of the way through this race. But from this point on, I mean, is this what we would theoretically call the point of no return? This is go time because
this is it. Yeah,
100%. Yeah, everybody's got what they've got. They've all come to pit road. You're not going to see anybody on pit lane again, except for maybe damage repair if we see another couple of yellow flags.
I to be perfectly honest with you, I think, like I said, I'm pretty sure DeGroot's just taken front tires. I think that's how he's gotten out ahead, because his pit stop was 4 seconds shorter. So he's going to be struggling to get the power down potentially later on in the run. But he needed to buy that track. I think if you're the lead car, it's so difficult to get overtaken, and he's got himself that track position. So I think he's made the best possible strategy call that he could theoretically make. Whether or not he's able to make this into a thing, if there's repeated cautions and it gets banked up back to back, I think this actually works out better in his. Well, there's 2 ways to go, right? The longer that they run here under green flag conditions, the more heavily worn those rear tires are going to get, which means he's going to suffer more at the back end of the race. But at the same time, the longer the green flag period, the longer that clear air to the nose of the car can really take an advantage and show itself. So it's a catch-22. You kind of do want it to go green and don't want it to go green at the same time, because you want to wear the lap numbers down so that the tires that you have, there's not as huge a differential at the tail end of the race as we come to green.
Let's also bear in mind, Nick DeGroot, Rick Rayvon, while they're both looking for their second win on the season, they also want to be the one to lead the points heading into Motegi next week. Maleska did get back on the lead lap. He'll be restarting back in the 15th position as green flag comes out with 28 laps to go here at the Milwaukee Mile. Be a battle for the third, fourth position. Kobe Moore and Charles Teed. Oh, look at Gale Brooks making a move there for the fifth spot. And getting dicey in the latter half of the top five is now Teed has to check up for Moore. Brooks had to check up for Teed, and that brought Dylan Moskowitz into the vicinity. Nearly had a stack up and a lead change underway. Rick Rayvon, with those fresher tires, swings around Nick DeGroot, and he'll lead us back to the start-finish line. Matt Wagner now looking for the spot on Nick DeGroot. I need to correct myself. I said that Maleska and Bennett were tied with 3 wins apiece. Actually, Bennett, with his win last week, jumped up to 4 wins on the season, so he actually leads all drivers in that category. But your drivers up here inside the top 3 now, Rayvon, Wagner, and Nick DeGroot, they're all looking for their second win on the season. Other drivers making forward progress. David Cook, he's now under fire from Austin Espite. Got Charles Teed in the mix there as he gets tight through the center of 1 and 2. Moskowitz trying to get the 4th position away, the 5th position correction off of Gale Brooks. Throw a blanket over 5th through about the 9th, 10th position. If we're looking for a late caution to come out, this might be the vicinity to look for it at, as it's really close quarter racing in the latter half of the top 10. The top 4 have gotten themselves single filed out. There's about a half-second gap between all 4 of them, but back here it is absolute pandemonium. Hopefully these guys are able to keep it together, as we have only seen the caution flag come out 3 times here tonight at the Milwaukee Mile. While we've got the chance, want to remind you all that your starting lineup and your finishing results here are brought to you by LMCgear.com, your one-stop shop for all your motorcycle, camping, and backpacking needs, specializing in camping gear that is ultra lightweight and compact, making it perfect for carrying on your motorcycle or in a backpack. And they also carry all the motorcycle accessories you need to get your gear safely down the road. Check out lightweightmotorcyclecampinggear.com today, and for all the Dark Horse fans, if you head on over and put in the promo code DARKHORSE10, you get 10% off of any order. That's lmcgear.com. Looks like we're having some connection problems here with my broadcast colleague Scott Rankin. Matthew Rodriguez filling in here for the time being. 20 laps to go. Rick Rayvon on those fresh tires. Wagner there in second place, but after Rayvon got out in that clean air, even before that last caution came out, just didn't seem like anybody was able to reel him in. So now it's all for him, just about hitting his marks.
Yes, realistically, clean air is really just a game changer here. Because when you get right behind a guy, the front end just taking all that draft just makes it so unstable. Now, again, we got to look at both the situations here. Wagner, now he started back in 17th position, drove up 15 spots all the way to P2, cautions out.
And that is going to be Jeff Hysong in the 18. Another car. Is that Jimmy Dryden, I believe, on his side up against the outside wall. So the caution is going to fly for the 4th time here today, and that looks like that's over in turn 4.
I just looked at that. That's a little bit of a curious situation because, you know, they're both lap down cars, and I don't really understand that, man. I don't know why Jimmy was chopping Hysong that hard, but I actually don't know why Hysong was pushing that hard on a lap car with him being a lap car himself.
That is some heavy contact into the outside wall, and to your point, yeah, Hysong was running 1 lap down, Dryden was running 4 laps down, so neither were battling each other for position in the running order.
Just got to use a little bit of that awareness where it's just, I mean, here's the thing, I understand you may have had a bad day, but man, you cannot chop a guy that deep.
Yeah, that definitely was a chop by the 99. He already had used his faster pair as well, so that is day over, no doubt, for Jimmy Dryden. And Jeff Hysong does have a faster pair available, but as we saw, he could not get his race car back to pit road under its own power, so he's going to have to spend the extra time on pit road with a tow. And, it was looking like for Nick DeGroot, the strategy call to take just the 2 tires, it looked like he was planning on maybe seeing a couple of cautions come out late. That caution obviously coming out a lot later than he was expecting. Are you surprised that we're not seeing him coming down pit road here? I know he would give up track position, but he would have fresher tires than everybody else. He's basically right now just in survival mode for these final 15 or so laps.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you got to kind of look at the situation where, yes, if I stay where I am right now, I probably would have a good top 5. I won't be able to really compete for the win, at least what I think I have right now. But if I take that risk, I jump all the way maybe back to 10th, 11th, and I start working my way back to the field. But looking at how difficult it's been to pass today, I can kind of see the reasoning here where he doesn't have that bad of tires, but doesn't have the greatest ones. I don't think DeGroot's really going to go out here and challenge for a win, but he's definitely not going to follow the top 5 with how he's running.
Well, we're going to have to see. You were talking about Matt Wagner and the ability he's had of working his way through the field. Didn't even get a lap time set down in qualifying. Started this race back from 17th place. He's got a shot here against Rick Ravon. I find this interesting, too. I don't know how this seems to play itself out with trends during the course of this season, but I mentioned back at Watkins Glen when Henry Bennett had his connection problems. Well, he had his connection problems here tonight. Who was the driver back at Watkins Glen that took the checkered flag? It was Matt Wagner. Could we see lightning strike twice at a road course and an oval in the same season?
I mean, I'm just looking at Ravon here, and I'm really liking Ravon. You heard how tired out, how beat he was after Mosport last week. I mean, just seeing it, just coming back from, hey, a podium finish at Mosport to possibly a win here at Milwaukee, I mean, that is a comeback.
Yeah, last week when we talked to him after his second place finish at Mosport, he said he was feeling about 70%, and I said, man, I'll tell you what, if you're feeling 70% and you finish runner-up at a road course, the rest of the field better watch out when you're feeling at 100%. Maybe that's where he's at right now, and he's going to try and keep them in his rearview mirror for these final 15, 14 laps or so, but now things start to get crazy behind him, though, because we saw guys like Austin Espite, Robert Maleska III, they were making hard charges through the field, trying to get themselves back up to the front where they were before an untimely caution and some pit strategy didn't work out in their favor. Right now, Espite's running in 8th and Maleska back in the 12th position. You know that these guys are in full-on go mode, and everybody else around them, it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to try and keep them in their rearview mirrors.
I'm going to tell you, I think there's going to be a little bit less give and take now, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a caution or 2 more. Just some of these guys, just like we saw before of, hey, there's 2 guys who both wanted that position and no one wanted to give. That's the end result that's going to happen every time.
Well, Rick Ravon got his first win of the season back at Pocono. He's looking to pick up another victory here in the north, I should say, at the Milwaukee Mile as the green flag back in the air. He pulls away from Matt Wagner, who's going to try and open up the daylight between himself and Nick DeGroot. Best battle right now is going to be back around that 6th, 7th position. That's where Gale Brooks tries to hold off Austin Espite.
Absolutely. And I looked at Charles Teed in that restart. He looked like he was about ready to get a really good jump on the car in front of him. Ended up losing 2 positions out of that whole deal.
Drops him back to the 12th spot outside of the top 10. Nick DeGroot just trying to hang on. Matt Wagner trying to reel in Rick Ravon as we go on board with him. Last time by, he ran about 2/10 slower. Let's see what happens here as the cars get themselves up to full speed. Wagner has been up there in the top 5 consistently in terms of lap times. That time by, though, another 2/10 slower than Rick Ravon. So he is losing ground to the race leader.
So you just see how much he's battling. Now, this is really Wagner's best shot to get at Ravon. Besides maybe, hey, having Ravon try and run off his stuff, and maybe you can mount a last lap charge. You see Gale Brooks falls back in position.
Vijay picks up that spot to move him up to 7th. Dylan Moskowitz just ahead, under fire from David Cook, who's another driver that's had to kind of mount a comeback after he had that earlier contact with Jimmy Drynan off of turn 4. He's up to 6th place, and just picking up a spot further back in the field, 14th place, Gary Corley, failed to mention he got the free pass under this most recent caution.
Absolutely, and he managed to get himself back on the lead lap. Man, he was almost 2-3 laps down halfway through the race. Nice to see the rally back.
Gary Corley actually has a good finish here, 6th place back in Season 2 at the Milwaukee Miles. So a driver that knows how to be able to finish well up inside of the top 10, had those early issues and trying to see if in these final 10 laps or so he can better the position he would have been, which would have been around 18th, 19th, as you mentioned, 3 laps down.
Absolutely, and it looks like Moskowitz may have had a little bit of an issue. Maybe that's Covey Moore. Covey Moore went up the track, lost 2 positions of both Moskowitz and Cook.
We saw Covey Moore have some issues off of turn 2 in qualifying, and it looks like he's having some problems as well. Getting that car to turn off the corner. Contact there between himself and Espite. I believe the 15 brushed the wall, but they both keep it going in the right direction.
That's the thing. I mean, once you get trapped on that high line, it throws you out of your groove and you have to readjust your whole racing line. The problem is the guys on the bottom side, they do not want to let you in. They want that free position. They're going to fight you for it.
Covey Moore's continuing to struggle. He got the wall again there off of turn 2, high off of turn 4. Now he'll try and slide in behind a battle for 7th place. That's Jim Herrick taking a look on Gale Brooks.
We haven't had very many headlines about Jim Herrick this year. Obviously, Milwaukee's a nice place. A lot of these guys who typically aren't up in here in this battle, they have been doing really well tonight.
Jim Herrick right now trying to further his way up inside the top 10, running in the 8th spot. A little bit further up, we might have a battle for 4th place. Dylan Moskowitz only about 3 car lengths ahead of David Cook, as Rick Ravon, the race leader, a second and a half between himself and Matt Wagner, as he's about to come around and put 5 laps to go on the board.
That's the thing. Ravon's got to keep in the back of his head a little bit that, you know, here's the thing, on the worst off chance, there is a possibility that he will end up having to maybe fight one more lap on a restart. So got to save that a little bit left in the tank.
Oh, when Henry Bennett lost the points lead back at Watkins Glen, it was Rick Ravon that took it over. Ravon, of course.
Oh, tees in the wall.
Oh! Caution is out. This was coming around to 4 laps to go. The question now is, will we be able to get back green, or will this race be ending under the yellow flag?
I think it may get back underway, but it may be like a lap or left to go. Man, it looks like T just misestimated that wall a little bit. Just cut it a little bit close to entry, trying to get the maximum arc he could into the corner. Just hit the jut out on the safer barrier and obviously launched him up onto the side and skidded like a skateboard. Tony Hawk will be proud.
Absolutely. Take a look at that. That's not a ride you expect to take when you come to the Milwaukee Mile. And wow, Charles Teed riding that outside safer barrier almost halfway through 1 and 2. Let's actually see what it looks like from inside of that race car, about, what, 2-3 feet above the racing surface.
I'm going to tell you, I mean, unfortunately, he's ended up parking it. He knows it. He will not be able to get back going, and that's going to be a really disappointing finish for him because he will drop behind Jeff Heisong here at the moment, who is 3 laps down. He will finish P20 at the moment, with Henry Bennett being unable to get back to him. That is a heartbreaker after running inside the top 10 most of the day.
You see it right there. You don't see it often, but at the tracks that have that little bit of a jut out for the safer barrier against the wall, that comes out about a good 6 inches from where the actual wall is, and lead drivers to kind of misjudge it. When we were riding on board there with him as well, he had quite a number of drivers in front of him, so it might have been a little bit of a blockade visually for him to be able to see where that boundary was.
That's the thing. I mean, as a driver, you really expect to try and get the maximum amount of room that you have out of the track. And just the thing, if you're not expecting that little bump from the right rear, and unfortunately, in these Indy cars, that little bump on the right rear is enough just to kind of launch you, as in maybe full-body stock cars or sports cars. That little bump will just bump you out of the way a little bit, that it won't hurt you that much.
Let's see if the lights go out atop the pace car. If they do, we're going to have the 1-lap shootout. If they do not, that means that we are going to be ending this race under yellow. And as you can see on board with Rick Ravon, they are still on. The caution lights are still on. So this race is going to be ending under the yellow flag. And in the matter of about 1.5 miles, Rick Ravon will be coming around to take his 2nd checkered flag of the season.
I'm going to tell you, that may not be the way that Rick Ravon may want to win this race, but I think either way, he's happy that he's won the race.
Now, bonus points notwithstanding, mentioned the fact that Rayvon, DeGroot, and Maleska came into this race second through fourth in points, 2 points separating all three of those drivers. Rayvon's going to get the win. Nick DeGroot will be finishing third, and Maleska was able to fight his way up to finish in the 8th position. So while the points will spread a little bit between those three than what it was coming into this race, it's still going to be close heading into another difficult track next week at Twin Ring Motegi. And then there's still the X factor of just how far back Henry Bennett's going to be after his connection issues tonight.
That's the thing. There is still enough races left in the season where if something wrong happens or a big wreck kind of takes out some of these leaders, it can easily swap.
And I think this is off a very important finish for Matt Wagner as well, because 59 points out of the points lead coming into this race. He's got to at least stay within striking distance of the top 4 in points, and a second place finish here tonight is certainly going to do that.
That's the main thing is, even if you're not in the main hunt for the points battle, just keeping your name in the conversation, having good finishes, doesn't even have to be wins, just keeping your name in the conversation, it helps you for when those big guys at the front of the field have issues, if they have wrecks, they have mechanical failures, or, hey, they just don't show up. That helps you at the end of the season.
Dave Cook's going to have back-to-back top 5s to start out his Dark Horse Racing Series career. Third place last week at Sport, and got 5th place right now in line for the 24 here today, and a very successful debut as well for Austin Espite. I know that the caution flags kind of threw off his pit strategy, but still was up inside the top 5 early on in this race. Fought his way back up into the top 10. He's going to be finishing 6th place, and there you can see the elation for Rick Rayvon as he's going to cross the line, win here today at the Milwaukee Mile, 2nd win on the season, and subsequently is going to be your points leader. 2nd time he'll be atop the standings this year, heading into next week at Twin Ring Motegi.
And you heard his concern after he missed that one race that he was worried that, hey, this may affect the kind of points battle here. It did not affect him at all. And honestly, I think he even kind of clawed his way back. I think he enjoyed his vacation off and honestly came back even stronger than before.
Absolutely did. Well, Rick Rayvon is going to be the one sitting in victory lane here today. You saw a couple of drivers pulling alongside, offering congratulations. There's his teammate, David Cook, actually bending on the back straight. I thought he was going to be one of the ones to come alongside and offer congratulations there, as Rick Rayvon's going to follow the pace car around here as this race ends under the yellow flag here today at the Milwaukee Mile. But once again, I mean, as Scott said, kind of to parrot what he said earlier on in this one, tremendous credit to these guys. We only saw the caution flag come out a total of 5 times today. It was 9 times we saw the caution flag back at New Hampshire. These guys put on a relatively clean race here today. A lot of green flag action.
And I think I just want to hit on it. The heartbreak that is Henry Bennett.
Yeah.
Man was doing so well at the beginning of the race, dominated that early part of the race, and just connection issues took him out of the fight. And that is just hard to claw your way back from. And the sad part is that's not the first time this season where he has been dominating a race and just an internet issues taking him out completely from competition.
One thing I will say, we saw Rick Rayvon miss that one race. Maleska has hit some bumps in the road. DeGroot's had a couple of races where the performances haven't been that great. And now with Bennett having the 2nd race this season where he's had connection problems, and both of them taking place when he was in the race lead. Watkins Glen earlier on this season and here today at the Milwaukee Mile. The good news still is, though, that we've got 6 more races after this before we end up taking the final checkered flag at Indy 500. So while we still are in the second half of the regular season, it's still early. I think that these guys still have a chance to be able to mount comeback runs. It's going to get fewer, though, when we start getting down to with 2 races remaining.
I mean, honestly, we saw it last season, but Twin Ring Motegi is really the great equalizer here. And I think a lot of fortunes can change there if things fall into place.
Definitely can. That's going to be a very interesting one here for the 4 or 5 drivers that are still mathematically in the hunt as we look at the finishing results from this race. Dylan Moskowitz, great run for him here today. The 4-car finishes in 4th. He was a very strong car in practice. He also was up there in the running order for qualifying, started in the 6th position. Gale Brooks, great run there for Gale, finishing in 7th place. Didn't jinx him today. Jim Herrick made a late charge up into the top 10 for 9th, and Jim Brooks going to have his 2nd top 10 finish of his career here at the Milwaukee Mile as well. Then you will go on down. These are drivers that found some issues late in this race. Eric Peterson fell back late in this one. Covey Moore, we saw the struggles he had on that last green flag run. Gary Corley did work his way back onto the lead lap. He'll finish in 13th. Nicholas Manook was also a driver that was a lap down and got a lucky dog at a point in this race. He'll finish in 14th, but you got guys back here. Bronson Stafford, 18th. This takes him out of the championship picture. Same for Charles Teed, who came into this race in, I believe it was the 9th position in points. This effectively takes him out of the championship picture as well. And of course, Jeff Heisong and Jimmy Dryden, we saw that contact between the two of them in the closing stages of this race. They both finished out, and Henry Bennett, while he was able to get back onto the racetrack, he did pick up one spot there, finishing in the 21st position, but certainly going to have to be on the comeback trail beginning next week when we head to Japan.
Absolutely. And you got to think there's a lot of guys who are obviously can still claw their way back into it. Obviously, Maletzka, DeGroot, Bennett, and same thing with Rick. They are all going to be looking forward to next week saying, hey, is this going to be my week where I can really expand my lead or see if I can jank some positions, or is this going to be a week where it's going to hurt me?
Well, let's see if we are able to talk with any of our top 3 finishers. I believe we have all 3 of them standing by. So let's talk with a driver that tried a little bit of strategy late in this one. While it didn't get him the race win, a solid points day in 3rd. So in the last 3 seasons, he has a win, a 2nd, and a 3rd here at the Milwaukee Mile. Pretty good numbers for the former champion, Nick DeGroot. Hey, Nick, Matt and Seth up here in the FRN booth. You got us?
Yep, I got you.
Well, man, obviously, we mentioned it just before we pulled you in here. Back-to-back-to-back podium finishes here at the Milwaukee Mile. You must like this track a lot, but man, you pulled off some strategy there. Almost was able to pick you up your 2nd win on the season, but if you could go back and do it again, would you put 4 tires on this 89?
Well, I just want to circle back to that one thing. I don't like this track, but it always gives me good finishes. Yeah, I don't know. It just always works out. But yeah, if I could do it over again, I would have done the same thing because I still ended up 3rd. I think it really only cost me 1 spot, and points for leading. And I think it was worth trying. I think if we could have had maybe a quick yellow before he got me, or if I could just held on a couple more laps once the newness wore off, I could have made it work because I really stabilized behind Wagner after they got a few laps on the tires. But it's those early laps when you can just put the foot to the floor, and I had nothing for him. But it was worth the shot. It was worth the gamble, and I'm glad we still got a podium out of it. Having a Covey behind me there for a little bit probably helped me because he wasn't really attacking, and then it just stabilized. So yeah, it's worth it. And I don't love Milwaukee, but Milwaukee loves me, so I'll take a podium any day here.
All right, Nick. So go ahead and turn back to last season where it was Twin Ring Motegi that really kind of hammered home some of the problems that you had last season, where I believe it was a pit call late in the race that you didn't put enough fuel in the car and you actually ran out. Is there any concern going in Motegi this season, or
that sucker's going to be filled up? I'll tell you that right now. That was one of my main gripes about last season for me. I made so many silly mistakes on my own. And this season, we've had a couple issues. We had that gateway incident, which, that's racing. And you had Chicagoland where I tried to be a hero going in turn 1. But other than that, it's been a really solid season for us. A lot of 2nd place finishes, a lot of podiums. And that's what you need to do to win one of these championships. So yeah, we'll make sure we'll get it filled for Motegi and hopefully not run out with 2 to go this time.
We were talking mid-race about the remaining races on the schedule. Every single one of them kind of brings their own X factor of where drivers battling for the championship could get into trouble. I mean, here today at the Milwaukee Mile, we ended up seeing the connection problems for Henry Bennett. Maleska trying some pit strategy, but cautions kind of thwarting that. It kind of looked like it was coming down between you and Rick as to who was going to be the points leader heading into Motegi next week. I mean, with seeing how drivers that are up there at the top of the standings running into issues here down the home stretch, how much does that worry you and how much does that motivate you to keep that consistency up?
Yeah, I mean, this has not been a clean season for anybody, and we see with guys like Henry, with guys like Rick, the level of the ability to get podiums and good finishes has been much more difficult this season. But the ability to get into trouble more often seems to have also gone up. So if you can just be consistent, and like Henry, you can't do anything about connections, but if you can just be consistent and not make those big gambles like Rob pitting early and trying to jump everybody, which is a good call if it goes green. But you gotta, if you're going for a tail, you gotta think, is it worth it? Because if a caution comes out, I'm back here and I'm not going to be going anywhere. So it's just those kind of decisions you have to make when you're going up against guys like this in a championship. Every point matters in a full season thing. There's no NASCAR playoffs here. We're going full season.
Well, Nick, Matt points out that you had the fuel issues last week. I'll point out the fact that you're a former winner as well at Motegi heading into next week as well. So, hopefully we see you on the good side of Motegi rather than on the bad side. But, man, keep the consistency up. Congratulations on a good run tonight. And now we'll give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Yeah, Motegi's a track I really like, so I look forward to getting to that one. I've won there in the DW12 and the IR18. It's a fun track, very unique track too. But yeah, Factory Back Motorsports, CoverMart.com, Motorsport.com, Blaze Pod, Cowboy Shit, HyperX, and everybody else that supports this team. Awesome to get him another podium. Wish we could have got Covey a top 5 there. He had a little problem at the end, but insane with Henry, of course. But yeah, look for next week. It's gonna be another good one.
That's Nick DeGroot, third place here tonight, the Milwaukee Mile. Once again, congratulations. And we will now move on to our second place finisher, Matt Wagner. Hey, Matt. It's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Barely.
Well, man, I'll tell you what. It was looking like maybe there we might get ourselves a one-lap shootout if we had enough caution laps, but ended up finishing this race under the yellow flag. If we'd had that one-lap shootout, were you formulating a plan to be able to get up there and pass that 2-car, get that second win of the season, and put yourself right back up there in that title picture?
I would love to get a win here. This is one of my favorite racetracks to be here, but that dirty air that Rick had is pretty bad. And as soon as I got near him on that last restart, he just pulled right away from me. He had so much more speed than I have. So other than that, I am pretty happy with second. I was content.
Alrighty, Matt. Let me go ahead and I'll bring a little bit more back to real world here. So obviously last season we were at Toon Ring Motegi and you finished P4. Now currently looking at the standings, you're P5. You're I think about 37 points out of the lead, if I'm correct. Yes, 37 points out of the lead. You really have finished inside the top 10 all but one race this season. I mean, what else can you do to really kind of climb those standings?
Wins. That's I would love to put wins together. It's me to put time and more practice into this league. I think would get more of the job done. But overall, I'm just quite surprised you have pulled that stat in front of you. I was like, wow, really? One finish outside the top 10.
Correct.
What track is that?
The one finish outside the top 10 would be New Hampshire. That was actually a race you wrecked in and disconnected.
Oh, yep. That's the race I got crashed by Bennett. I don't want to remember that one. It was just hard racing, dude. It is what it is. We battled it out yesterday into another race, and heck, we have our fair shares of battles, and it's quite fun. That's why I love this league.
Yeah, the stat that I like that Matt brought up, I hadn't seen that the standings had actually been updated after tonight's race. You were 59 points out of the points lead coming into tonight. You're now 37 points out. And we were talking just moments ago with Nick DeGroot and himself, Rick Ravon, Maleska, Henry Bennett. Nobody has had consistent, clean races week after week. There's been some hiccups along the way. The road courses have kind of been an Achilles heel for Maleska, connection problems for Bennett. Rick Ravon, of course, had the illness, and he was out for a week and had to kind of mount a comeback there. With Matt bringing up the fact that you've been consistently up there in the top 10, I mean, it's looking like there is every possibility if you keep this up here for the remaining races, you could still be there in the hunt for the championship by the time we get to Indy, which is a track that you are the defending winner at. So, I know that you want the emphasis on wins, but still, you've got to have in the back of your mind still that you want those consistent finishes as well.
Yeah, better consistent finishes, but I think I was just a little bit inside the top 10, but perhaps like more of a fifth place finishes. That would make my day feel a lot better. But hopefully more wins on an oval side. I have no idea what track is next. I did not look at the schedule.
Motegi.
Oh, you ain't kidding me. That is my favorite track on the server.
We're gonna win.
But I don't think so. I called it out of California. Look what happened to me. I blew it.
Maybe he can be like Nick DeGrew. He says he hates Milwaukee and he's got 3 straight podium finishes. So maybe you say you don't like Motegi. Maybe it'll grant you a win. We'll see. But I
No.
mean,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Please go.
if you want to say so, I was going to have you do the thank you sponsors and shout outs. But if you want to put a little footnote there on Motegi, go ahead.
You know, I am missing my good buddy there, Scott Rankin. Where is he?
Unfortunately,
You-
duty called.
Well, he says his name and he appears. I'm very concerned about this. He's able to usher Scott from anywhere.
Yeah, look,
I,
I just heard it. He said my name and I appeared.
yes, I did.
Yeah, sorry guys. I had a work call come up that I had to immediately jump out and take straight away. So it's the first time that's actually happened. So
Well, it's good hearing your voice there, buddy. We always talked after the race, and I really truly enjoy it. But thank you, sponsors and shoutouts, as you usually say. I'd like to thank HyperX, Area 51, LMC Gear, Troy Lee Designs, and all of the Dark Horse racing guys. I know there's a few new faces, but I'm quickly adapting to these guys, and I really do appreciate all the clean driving. So hopefully we get to talk again soon. Hopefully a win next week, because I'm dying for
Matt,
a win.
before you go, can I just get you to extrapolate on that point you just made? Milwaukee, very difficult track. Yes.
Yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yes. Okay.
This is what
Right?
happens when there's 2 Matts in the
How
same
few
room.
cautions did we see?
3.
How insane is that? I'm looking at that, and I'm looking at the number of rookie drivers in the field, and you had to drive through all of them.
Well, it's
There was a lot of give and take tonight. A lot of give and take. A lot of
Yeah.
give, actually. A lot of give.
hmm And when it is a guy that is faster, I will let him go. Like during the race, I want to say one thing before I go. I really feel bad for Dylan. He had a hell of a fast race car tonight, and he botched it on pit road. And a big shout out to Dylan there. Hopefully in the next race he'll get to talk to you guys.
Matt Wagner is going to bring it home P2 here tonight, puts himself further in the championship picture here with only a few races left on the schedule. Congratulations once again there, Matt. And as you said, hopefully we'll talk to you again next week, hopefully in victory lane for your second win of the season.
I would love to. I'm waiting.
And let's now go down and talk to the guy that is in victory lane here tonight. And that is your new points leader as well, Rick Ravon. Hey, Rick, it's Matt, Scott, and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
I got you, Seth. I got you. Oh, I got you.
All right, so I said this last week. You had the runner-up finish at Canadian Tire. You said you were at 70%. And I said, man, if you're at 70%, you get a finish as good as that, watch out field when you're at 100%. You're in victory lane here tonight, but what was the health coming into tonight's race?
Wait, hold on. My wife's here. What's up, honey? I'm sorry. Can you ask your question again, please?
Basically, was asking with last week when you said you were at 70%, got the runner-up finish last week. I said if you were at 100%, watch out field, and you're able to get that win here tonight. So what was the health situation coming into this evening at Milwaukee?
I felt like I was about, I would say, between 80 to 85%. The voice is back pretty much almost 100%. But I love you too, honey. Thank you. Thank you, honey. Oh my God. I don't even know what to say. I mean, really, when the white came out and then the checkered, I couldn't believe it. I was almost in tears. I cannot believe. I did not expect to win this race. I didn't feel like the Gould Charge really had pace this weekend. And just kind of hanging on and just hoping for the best, hoping for a top 5. And I had a couple things go my way. Henry Bennett, I mean, good Lord, Henry Bennett, such a class act. And you know what? He had this race. He really did. He had this place wired, and it was his race to lose, and everybody else was really racing for second place. And I got a couple of breaks there with, I guess, a couple yellow flags. I was able to get a couple guys on a restart. And then all of a sudden, it was like the Gould Charge found its rhythm. we started getting around quick. I started figuring some things. I said, oh, you know what? I could reel this guy in. Hey, this is working out pretty good. Okay, I think I finally figured something out. And next thing I knew, I was in the lead, and I just can't believe it. I can't believe it. I don't know what to say. I just don't know what to say.
I mean,
All right.
congratulations, mate. Like, I mean, I'm gonna throw something out on a limb here and just say I think you're the commentary box's favorite driver. But like, you're just a class act. A Rick Ravon win is a fun win. Everyone, I think, enjoys it.
Scott, I got to be honest with you, man. I listened to your commentary, and I wanted to say something last week. You guys were talking about, I think it was, where were we? Fontana. And I think it was Seth that said something about Gateway. And he said, not to jinx anything, but the Gateway winner went on to win the championship. When I heard that,
That was Seth. That was Seth.
Oh, that was Seth. When I heard that, I says, "Oh, and Gateway's a good track for me. I got a good shot at Gateway. I love that place." And oh, I hope. And then you said, "I want Rick Ravon to win. He's a People's Champion." And I was like, "Oh, I love this guy." So that was good to hear. That was a good boost for my spirits. Really, thank you.
Oh man, happy to see it. Like you're a hoot to chat to, and I just enjoy sitting in here and literally just chatting to you. That's, to be perfectly honest, makes my night. That's why I show up for commentary, is to chat to people that are this interested in racing, and you give us the emotion. Like not a lot of drivers come out there and give us the emotion of what it goes through in a race, and we really get that feeling from you. So thank you kindly.
Well, thank you so much, Scott, and thank you, Seth. And I've been a race fan since I was 12 years old, IndyCar fan, and this is as close as I'll ever come to doing the real thing. And it's a simulation. It's not a game. I don't want to hear anybody say this is a game. This is a dang simulation.
It's a gamified simulator.
Yeah, it's like, hey, look,
it's both. It's both.
They train pilots on flight simulators. Why can't and they train race car drivers on racing simulations, right? It's the same dang thing. So, I figure, look, I could always tell myself, if I ever had the chance back in the day, a few decades ago, maybe I could have been a champ. Who knows? Who knows? But it feels good to be able to do this. And with the quality of the field, these guys, man, just such amazing racing. I love Dark Horse is just, I love it here so much. I just love it.
I gotta ask you, Rick. I mean, here tonight we saw a lot of moving and shaking as far as the point stands. There were 59 points separating the top five. When the checkered flag waves, only 37 points separating the top five. And Matt Rod hit this home when we were interviewing DeGroot earlier. The fact that the next race that we're going to, Twin Ring Motegi, last season, it was kind of the difference maker, kind of the turning point as to who was going to win the championship and who wasn't. So with that being said, I mean, how much emphasis do you put on next week's race?
I put a ton of emphasis on next week's race. Motegi is sort of the opposite of Gateway, which is a good track for me. And it's got the wide open corner and the tight corner. You have to kind of balance the two. And I seem to get that down pretty good. I'm not going to say I'm going to be the fastest. Believe me, this is such a quality field. But it's a similar track to Gateway. And so we should have a pretty good shot there, at least, hopefully, maybe for a podium, if not better. But I'm just so looking forward to that track. That is going to be, and I know with Henry Bennett making these setups, that is just going to be such a fun, competitive race. I don't know what he does at these setups, but he's the magic man when it comes to making these competitive setups. And it's going to mean everything. Momentum is everything. I think we have some momentum on our side right now. And I just can't wait for the rest of the season. I'm just so excited. The butterflies in my stomach are just almost unbearable before every race. I'm so excited. I can't wait to get it on.
Well, Rick, congratulations on the victory here tonight. Second on the season. You're the new points leader heading to Motegi as well. So looking forward to see if you can keep that here down the home stretch. We're now going to turn the mic over to you for some Victory Lane thank you, sponsors, and shout-outs.
Oh, I want to thank everybody in the league. Thanks, Charles Teed. Thanks to, thanks to, I'm so sorry, Charles Teed and, I'm sorry. I can't think of the other guy's name. What the heck is his name? Eric Peterson. I'm sorry, Eric. I'm drawing a blank. I can't even think straight. I just don't know what to say. Thank you, Charles Teed. Thank you, Eric Peterson, for putting this on. Thank you to all the drivers for racing out there so clean and just making it such a great show every week in and week out. Thanks to Henry Bennett for the setups. Thanks to everybody who's tuning in. Thanks to you guys at FRN, Seth, Scott. You guys are awesome. I love listening to your commentary. I can't wait. I'm gonna go upstairs right now and watch the race. And thanks to the Lord. Thank you, Jesus, for bringing me through COVID. And I'm still healing. It's going to be a long process, but I'll get there. And thanks to the Lord for that blessing. And just thanks to everybody for tuning in. Thanks. Hello to my wife. I love you, Alana. I love you, Mila. Thank you for tuning in. And just looking forward to next week. And thank you guys again so much for what you do to make this even more exciting than it is.
Rick Ravon's in victory lane here tonight. Second time here in the Dark Horse Racing Series, and tonight it's at the Milwaukee Mile. Once again, congratulations, Rick. Best of luck next week at Twin Rim Motegi.
Thank you, Seth. Thank you. God bless you. God bless you, Scott.
Thanks, Rick. Good luck for next week, buddy.
And that's going to conclude our coverage here tonight from the Milwaukee Mile. Last year it was Twin Rim Motegi. I'm almost wondering if this season it may be here at the Milwaukee Mile that's the turning point, because so many different things taking place that you really couldn't have predicted. Bennett with the connection problems, Maleska, the strategy calls just not working out. DeGroot tried the two-tire strategy. It got him a third place, but it didn't get him the victory. And Rick Ravon, who 2 weeks ago wasn't even in the field, goes to victory lane here tonight. Mentioned the fact that the points gap closes even more here tonight for the top five. It's Ravon 4 points over Bennett, 15 points back is DeGroot, 26 points back is Maleska, and 37 points back is Matt Wagner with 6 races left in the season. I mean, this is going to be a very interesting home stretch heading for that Indy 500.
Yeah, we can't pick it. Conveniently, I was just looking over the Seth Cole crystal ball. Apparently, 11 points gap is the number right throughout the field. There are 6 drivers that have 11 points to the driver ahead of them. 6 separate drivers in the entire field of 30 cars. That's unbelievable. And then there's a whole bunch with 10 and a whole bunch with 12 as well. So it's about that 10-point margin at this point to go is the gap from one driver to the next on average. So it's really close out there. And like you said, I think tonight, the stock car in me says 10 points. Ah, man, that's so tough. That's going to take a lot of overhauling with the rest of the season to go. But this isn't stock cars. This is Indy cars. We have just seen a guy who misses a race return to the lead of the championship. Henry Bennett would have control of the championship, would have had control of that race, and he would have shown a clean pair of heels at the top of the standings. This season would be so different. But every little piece of unluckiness, every slice of luck for somebody else, it just spices this championship battle up. And with 7 races to go, we have 5 guys fighting for a championship. There could potentially be another 3 if a miracle happens. And we've seen miracles happen so far this season.
We've seen the changing of the guard for the points lead 5 times between 3 different drivers here so far this season. Maleska, Bennett, and Ravon have all taken turns up at the top of the point standings. Bennett twice and Ravon now for the second time jumping up to the top of the point standings as well. And I know you told me to put away the crystal ball, but I'm just going to throw this out here. This isn't a prediction, but I'm just going off the stats here. Just going off the stats.
Oh.
I mentioned the fact back at Homestead that the 2 defending champions ended up winning that race. Henry Bennett was the eventual winner of that one. Here tonight at Milwaukee, both DeGroot and Maleska, the defending champions, in their respective seasons, won here. Well, we're going to Motegi next week. And both DeGroot and Maleska were the winners of those races in their respective championships. It's going to be interesting to see because, just bear in mind, Rick Ravon and Henry Bennett, the 2 drivers that have won so far at the tracks that both DeGroot and Maleska won in their championship seasons, they're sitting first and second in the point standings right now, 4-point separation.
That's just it. 4-point separation, 15 back from Ravon to DeGroot, 26 back from the lead is Maleska, and 37 back from the lead. And like I said, 11, 11, 11 between the bottom 3 in that list. So it is I'm going to stick with it. It's not over for Stafford, Brooks, and Peterson, but it is a mammoth task to overhaul that point deficit. So for all intents and purposes, I'm saying we've got a top 5 fighting for a championship. Matt Wagner has had a quiet couple of weeks. He hasn't had a standout performance at any stage, but he's had the least bad performance, I think, out of a lot of the drivers here. And if you look at week in, week out, I think Wagner is just creeping up on these guys, not through benefit of having the fastest car on the circuit, but through the benefit of having the car that's least likely to run into trouble.
And if it comes down to that season finale, Wagner would be heading into that Indy 500 as the defending winner of that race.
I know.
I mean, again, as we've said, these have been things that we just cannot script. We've been watching them play out and been following the storylines during the course of the season. We've still got a little bit of a chunk of the season left to go and still a lot of storylines yet to be written before we end up getting to that season finale. But man,
God,
tonight,
Seth
another
and his crystal
chapter.
ball. You're going to just show up in my dreams tonight. I can see it already. Thanks, Seth.
I very well might. Very well might. I'll be that fortune teller.
Can I get a t-shirt? Seth and a crystal ball?
No, let's hopefully not see that end anytime soon. Nonetheless, though, Rick Ravon, the winner here tonight. Unbelievable race here at the Milwaukee Mile. It sets us up for next week when we're going to be heading across the pond and heading for Twin Ring Motegi in Japan. Should be a good one. That always brings about some incredible racing, and with 5 drivers, throw a blanket over them for the points lead. Should be very, very interesting. Scott, though, it's been a good one here tonight at the Milwaukee Mile. Appreciate you joining me in the booth.
Yeah, big shout out to Matt Rodriguez, who stepped in as well and covered for me when something came up. So much appreciated. And as usual, like I said, it's just been a joy. It's been a joy to broadcast this league so far, and it's not over yet. Oh my word, have we got a battle on our hands?
Definitely do. What is going to be the next chapter in the story? We'll find out next week when we head to Twin Ring Motegi. Hope you guys will join us for that, as we'll be bringing you coverage next Wednesday night with the green flag flying at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But for Scott Rankin, Matthew Rodriguez, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday night as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flat Out Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flat Out Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flat Out Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flat Out Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.